Hey everyone, and welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe.
And I'm Sunny.
And we are ready for another deep dive.
And today we're diving deep into some seriously messy international drama.
You guys know we love to unpack the big stories, and this one is a doozy. So grab your drinks, settle in, and get ready for some Sip and Talk analysis.
We're talking about the U.S. and Ukraine rare earth minerals and a whole lot of political fireworks.
Okay, so here's the situation. The U.S. and Ukraine were trying to hammer out this massive deal involving Ukrainian rare earth minerals, those things that are super important for all sorts of tech and defense stuff.
These aren't just any old rock. We're talking about materials that are essential for everything from smartphones to fighter jets. And China currently controls about 70% of the global market.
Right, exactly. So this deal could have been a big win for the U.S. in terms of reducing their dependence on China. But then, bam, the whole thing imploded spectacularly.
And the fallout has been intense, from diplomats crying neocolonialism, basically accusing the U.S. of trying to exploit Ukraine, to some Republicans expressing concerns about Trump's tactics. The backlash has been pretty widespread.
Yeah, Trump straight up called Zelenskyy a dictator on Truth Social. Not exactly the best way to win friends and influence people.
And canceling that joint press conference, that was a pretty clear sign that things were seriously off track.
Honestly, the whole thing just felt like a giant dumpster fire.
Well, that might be giving Trump too much credit. Sunny dumpster fires at least generate some heat.
Okay, good point. More like a dumpster filled with lukewarm dishwater. Just kind of gross and pointless.
Perfect analogy. But here's where things get interesting. What if all this drama, all this apparent chaos, is actually part of a bigger plan? What if Trump, the self-proclaimed art of the deal master, is playing a long game here?
Hold on. Are you suggesting that the guy who literally wrote the book on deal-making is actually using his deal-making skills?
Exactly. Remember, Trump's negotiation style is all about pressure, unpredictability, and throwing everyone off balance.
Yeah, think back to his summits with Kim Jong-un or the whole U.S.-China trade war.
Yeah.
He definitely loves to shake things up.
And while those situations had mixed results, there's no denying that his unconventional approach got people talking and in some cases led to actual agreements.
So you're saying these public clashes with Zelenskyy, the insults, the canceled meetings, it could all be a calculated move to create leverage?
Exactly. It's like he's playing poker and deliberately showing his weak hand to Putin, hoping to make him overconfident and willing to negotiate on more favorable terms.
Okay, I can see how that might work in theory.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it just seems like he's making things worse.
Maybe, or maybe that's what he wants us to think. Remember that proposed $50 billion rare earth mineral deal that Zelenskyy rejected? What if that's just a starting point, a ridiculously inflated offer designed to make the eventual compromise seem more palatable?
You're starting to sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Hey, I'm just exploring all the possibilities here. And honestly, wouldn't it be kind of wild if Trump, of all people, was the one to broker peace in Ukraine? Imagine the headlines. Trump wins Nobel Peace Prize world? Shocked.
Okay, that would be pretty epic. But let's be real, for that to happen, a lot of things would need to go right.
Exactly. First, we'd need to see some actual results. A Russian withdrawal, a ceasefire, something concrete that shows real progress towards peace. And it can't just be a temporary Band-Aid. It needs to be a lasting solution.
Right, because a Nobel Peace Prize isn't about ending a war for 5 minutes. It's about creating a lasting peace, which, let's be honest, feels pretty far-fetched right now.
Agreed. And even if Trump somehow pulls off a peace deal, there's another huge hurdle: international support. Right now, Europe is not buying this Art of the Deal Act. They see it as reckless and dangerous, and they're worried that Trump is undermining Ukraine's position.
Yeah, they've been pretty vocal about that.
Exactly. So for Trump to win that Nobel Prize, he'd need to convince not just Putin and Zelenskyy, but also the entire international community that his chaotic approach is actually leading to a positive outcome.
Which, let's face it, is a tall order. Europe's already pretty skeptical of Trump, and this whole situation isn't exactly helping his image.
Definitely. And remember, we can't just focus on Trump's perspective here. What about Russia? What are they thinking as they watch all this unfold? Are they buying into Trump's act, or are they using this U.S.-Ukraine rift to their advantage?
That's a great point. If Putin's just sitting back and laughing while the U.S. and Ukraine fight, then this whole master negotiator theory falls apart pretty quickly.
Exactly. And there's another layer of complexity we need to consider: the economic angle. The U.S. wants to reduce its reliance on China for rare earth minerals, and this deal with Ukraine, if it had gone through, would have been a big step in that direction.
So it's not just about peace. It's about economics, geopolitics, and this whole power struggle between the U.S. and China.
Right. And that adds another layer of motivation to Trump's actions. He might be trying to secure those rare earth minerals for the U.S., even if it means using some questionable tactics.
So it's like a multi-level chess game with peace economics and international relations all tangled up together.
Exactly. And to make things even more complicated, the EU is stepping up to support Ukraine, potentially undermining Trump's leverage.
Whoa, hold on. Explain that one to me.
Well, if the EU is providing Ukraine with the economic and political support they need, they're less reliant on the U.S. And that means Trump has less power to influence the situation.
So instead of being the indispensable nation that dictates the terms of peace, the U.S. is becoming increasingly irrelevant.
It's certainly a possibility. And that could make Trump even more desperate to force a resolution, even if it's not the best outcome for Ukraine or the U.S. in the long run.
Man, this is getting complicated.
Tell me about it. But that's why we're here, right? To untangle these messy situations and try to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And while we're at it, let's not forget about the wild card in all of this. Trump himself. Is this really a carefully calculated strategy, or is this just Trump acting impulsively and creating chaos wherever he goes?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, think back to his first term. Did his tough talk and aggressive tactics with allies like Canada and Germany actually achieve anything positive? Not really.
And what about Putin? Has he been praising Trump's brilliance and saying how much he loves working with him? Not exactly.
Nope. In fact, Russia seems to be taking advantage of the situation, using the U.S.-Ukraine rift to further their own goals.
So maybe this whole art of the deal thing is just a fantasy. Maybe Trump's not a strategic genius. He's just a guy who loves to create drama and then claim credit when things work out, even if it's by pure chance.
That's certainly a possibility. And we can't ignore the domestic pressure he's facing either. There's a growing number of Republicans who are skeptical of continued aid to Ukraine, which might be pushing Trump towards short-term solutions rather than a long-term peace plan.
Okay, so we've got a lot of moving pieces here. Trump's unpredictable personality, Russia's hidden agenda, Europe's growing influence, and the economic factors at play. It's enough to make your head spin.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
But that's what makes this whole situation so fascinating to analyze. It's a real-life political thriller with the stakes higher than ever.
And we'll be back in part 2 of this deep dive to unpack even more of this craziness. So stay tuned, folks, because things are about to get even more interesting.
Welcome back to Sip&Talk,
where we're trying to untangle this whole Trump-Zelenskyy rare earth minerals mess.
It's like trying to herd cats, except the cats are all wearing tiny suits and yelling about sanctions.
Okay, that's an image I did not need in my head, but you're right, it's chaotic. So last time we were talking about the possibility that Trump's actually playing some kind of 4D chess game here.
The art of the deal master, orchestrating a grand plan to bring peace to Ukraine and snag himself a Nobel Peace Prize in the process.
Right, which sounds pretty far-fetched, but hey, we're trying to keep an open mind here. So let's say for argument's sake that there is some strategy behind all this madness. What would we need to see happen next? What are the key indicators that this so-called master plan is actually in motion?
Well, the first thing I'd be looking for is direct talks between Trump and Putin.
Ooh, a Trump-Putin summit. Now, that would be must-see TV.
Oh, absolutely. Can you imagine the memes? The handshake alone would break the internet.
But jokes aside, it would be a huge deal if they actually sat down at the negotiating table.
Exactly, because right now it's all just speculation and posturing. But if Trump and Putin are having serious conversations, then we know things are shifting.
And it wouldn't just be about optics, right? Those talks could reveal whether Putin is actually buying what Trump's selling, or if he's just using this U.S.-Ukraine rift to his own advantage.
Right. Is Putin genuinely intimidated by Trump's pressure tactics? Or is he seeing this as an opportunity to exploit a weakened U.S. and further his own goals in Ukraine? That's what those talks could tell us.
Okay, so Trump-Putin talks are a big one. What else should we be looking for?
Well, another crucial factor is Zelensky's stance. Right now, he's standing firm, rejecting Trump's proposals, and insisting on continuing the fight.
Yeah, he's not backing down. He's even called out Trump for undermining Ukraine's position.
Exactly. And that's understandable given what's at stake for him and his country. But if Trump's strategy is going to work, if he's going to orchestrate some kind of peace deal, Zelenskyy needs to soften his stance at least a little.
But that's a huge ask. He's fighting for his country's survival.
I know. But diplomacy often involves making tough choices, compromises that might feel uncomfortable in the short term, but could lead to a better outcome in the long run.
So you're saying Zelenskyy might have to swallow his pride and accept a deal that isn't ideal, but that could prevent further bloodshed and devastation.
That's the harsh reality of wars. Sometimes the best option isn't the one that feels the most satisfying. It's the one that minimizes the damage and creates the best chance for a more stable future.
Okay, so let me get this straight. For Trump's master plan to work, we need to see direct talks between Trump and Putin and a willingness from Zelenskyy to compromise.
Exactly. Those are the two biggest pieces of the puzzle. Without them, this whole art of the deal theory just falls apart.
And if those pieces don't fall into place, what then? What happens if Trump's gamble doesn't pay off?
Well, then we're looking at a potentially disastrous scenario. A further breakdown in U.S.-Ukraine relations, increased tensions with Europe, and maybe even an escalation of the conflict itself.
So basically the opposite of what Trump claims he's trying to achieve.
Pretty much. Instead of being the peacemaker, he could end up being the one who pours gasoline on the fire.
And that Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely not happening in that scenario.
Not a chance. So yeah, the stakes are incredibly high here. The next few weeks are going to be crucial. We'll need to watch closely to see if any of these key developments emerge.
In the meantime, we'll be here sipping our drinks, trying to make sense of it all, and hoping for the best.
Embracing for the worst. Because with Trump, you never really know what's going to happen next.
Speaking of the unexpected, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about some of the other players in this game.
Sure. What did you have in mind?
Well, we've talked a lot about Trump and Zelenskyy, but what about Putin? What's his role in all of this? Is he just sitting back and watching the U.S. and Ukraine fight amongst themselves? Or is he actively working to manipulate the situation to his advantage?
That's the million-ruble question. Sonny Putin's a master strategist, and he's always playing the long game. So it's tough to say for sure what he's thinking or what his ultimate goals are.
Right, he's not exactly known for transparency.
Nope, he keeps his cards close to his chest. But we can make some educated guesses based on his past actions and his current behavior. And it seems pretty likely that he's using this U.S.-Ukraine rift to his advantage, even if he's not directly orchestrating it.
How so? Give me some examples.
Well, for one thing, it weakens the unified front against Russia. If the U.S. and Ukraine aren't on the same page, it makes it harder for them to coordinate their response to Russian aggression.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
A divided enemy is always easier to defeat.
Exactly. And it also gives Putin more leverage in any potential negotiations. If he knows that the U.S. is wavering in its support for Ukraine, he's more likely to dig in his heels and demand concessions.
So basically, Trump's actions, whether intentional or not, might be playing right into Putin's hands.
It's definitely a possibility, and that's something we need to keep in mind as we analyze this situation. Trump might think he's being a master negotiator, but he could actually be doing more harm than good.
This is giving me anxiety. Can we talk about something more cheerful now? Like puppies? Or rainbows?
Not yet. We've got one more part of this deep dive to get through. But don't worry, we'll save the puppies and rainbows for another episode.
Fine.
Yeah.
But I'm holding you to that. Now, where were we?
Oh, right.
Trying to figure out if Trump's a mastermind or a mess.
Exactly. And honestly, it's still too early to say for sure. There's evidence to support both sides of the argument, but what's clear is that this situation is far more complex than it appears on the surface.
Definitely. And it's going to have a huge impact on the future of Ukraine, U.S.-Russia relations, and maybe even the global balance of power.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so fascinating to watch. It's like a real-life political thriller with the stakes higher than ever.
Well, one thing's for sure, we'll be keeping a close eye on this story as it unfolds. Who knows what twists and turns are waiting for us.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe we'll even see Trump accepting that Nobel Peace Prize someday. Stranger things have happened.
Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
But, hey, it's not impossible.
Right. That's the spirit, never say never, especially when it comes to Trump.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for our deep dive. We'll be back next week to continue unpacking this whole Trump-Zelenskyy saga and try to figure out what it all means.
In the meantime, keep your eyes peeled for any signs of a Trump-Putin summit or a sudden softening in Zelensky's stance. Those could be the first hints that this strategic genius theory might actually have legs.
And before we sign off, a quick shout out to our friend Micky from the YouTube channel Mickeytolife.
Yes, definitely check out Micky. He's got a real knack for storytelling, and his whiskey reviews are top-notch.
If you're looking for some amazing travel tales, whiskey reviews, and just overall good vibes, be sure to check him out.
He's the perfect antidote to all the doom and gloom we've been talking about today.
Absolutely. Go head over to YouTube and search for Mickeytolife. You won't regret it.
And tell him Sunny and Joe from Sip&Talk sent you.
Until next time, keep sipping and keep talking.